Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to present you the preliminary results of a study to estimate seroprevalence of anti-Ebola antibodies in health workers in Monrovia. The Ebola virus disease outbreak, which occurred in Western Africa, started in March 2014, and it was the largest outbreak of Ebola in history. Or it was not, it is still, because Liberia, for example, will be declared for the fourth time in 2 years on the 9th of June Ebola-free. So far, worldwide, there have been almost 29,000 reported Ebola cases and almost 12,000 reported Ebola deaths. Liberia was one of the countries most affected by the virus, with almost 11,000 reported cases and 5,000 reported deaths. Transmission was particularly high in Monserrado County, and there, especially in the capital of Monrovia. This is the reason why we wanted to determine the proportion of the population being exposed to the virus. We wanted to gain knowledge on Ebola infections that are asymptomatic. The objective of the study was therefore to estimate seroprevalence of anti-Ebola immunoglobulin IgG against the virus, to gain knowledge about the proportion of people who test positive for an immune marker of Ebola, both in the general population and among health facility personnel in 7 zones of Greater Monrovia in Liberia. Today, I only want to speak about the results of the health facility personnel because the field part of the study just finished last week, and I'm back from Liberia since Monday, so therefore we do not have all the analysis already done. To be part of the study, the community health facilities had to have opened during the Ebola outbreak, meaning between March 2014 and May 2015. We both equally included public and private community health facilities. Doing this, we identified 55 community health facilities in 7 zones of the study. Among those, we randomly selected 31 health facilities, having had an equal number of public and private health facilities, and we wanted to include an equal number of small and big health facilities according to the number of people working in these health facilities. Within the selected health facilities, we included everybody working in the health facilities, meaning medical, non-medical people, between March 2014 and the time of the interview, having have an age of 18 years or older and with an exterior temperature of less than 37.5 degrees. We did an exhaustive inclusion of the health facility personnel from all the selected health facilities. For each study participant, a blood sample was taken by a laboratory technician, and a semi-structured questionnaire was filled in, which collected data on demographic information, work exposure history, community exposure history, and clinical history. The serological assay was done at the Liberian Institute of Medical Research, the LIBR in Monrovia, in collaboration with the National Institute of Health, which is a governmental entity of the United States. The test which was used is an ELISA test, which detects anti-Zaire Ebola virus glycoprotein, IgG, and it's the manufacturer is Alpha Diagnostic International in Texas, the US. The NIH identified 2 thresholds for seropositivity. The sample analysis was done between December 2015 and very recently between May 2016. Prior to starting the study ethical approval was sought by the National Research Ethical Board in Liberia and as well by the Comité de Protection des Personnes in France. Written informed consent was signed by the entire study population prior to participating. The anonymity of the survey data and especially the blood samples was guaranteed by only using ID numbers, working with ID numbers. And the blood samples are analyzed and will be stored and remain in Liberia. If we come to the first results, altogether we included 313 persons working in 1 to 9 health facilities, and we have in each zone between 12 and 65 people. The 50% of the health workers were between 30 and 49 years. The median age was 37 years, and the people working in the health centers were 2/3 female and 1/3 male. Of all the health professions in the health facilities, almost or around more than 50% worked as nurses' aide, in administration, or as nurses. If you now look at this graph, which shows the seroprevalence, you can see on the x-axis the concentration of antibodies in the blood, and on the y-axis you see the number of people with their specific antibody level. As we are saying, the NIH identified 2 thresholds for seropositivity. If you look at the red line, then the red line is a cutoff identified at 700 units per milliliter, which gives a less conservative threshold of seropositivity. And with this, 9.6% of our health workers were seropositive, 30 out of 313. If you look at the blue line is the thresholds, which is defined by 1,000 units per milliliter. And so everybody who is on the right side of the blue line was seropositive, meaning it's 6.4% of the people, 20 out of 313. Among those, we had 6 of the 20 who had been admitted to an ETU, so we can assume that they are survivors. In the following, I will only present you data which are compared to the 6.4% to the 20 that have been seropositive. If you look at the clinical history of the study population was asked if they experienced signs and symptoms of Ebola at the time of the outbreak. A list of 14 signs and symptoms, which are usually related to Ebola definition, was presented to the study population, and they needed to answer us if they had the symptom with yes or no. Altogether, 60% of the study population did not report any symptoms. This number was similar in the group who were seronegative, the IgG minus, and also for those who have been IgG positive but not admitted to an ETU. The IgG positive group reported more often several symptoms than those that were IgG negative. And what we can also see that though the 6 persons who've been admitted to an ETU, they all reported at least 6 different signs and symptoms. Here again you see the 3 groups. The red group is the IgG negative group, the green group is those who are, have antibodies against Ebola but not admitted to an ETU, and the last, the blue group, are the 6 persons who've been admitted to an ETU. What we can see is that signs and symptoms are less reported in those being seronegative than in both groups being seropositive. But what we can also see is that signs and symptoms are less reported in the seropositive group, but less than those who are seropositive and admitted in the ETU. Almost all 6 persons who've been admitted to an ETU reported almost all signs and symptoms that are related to Ebola. If you now look at the factors that are associated to seropositivity, and we run a univariate analysis to look for single factors that are positively associated. We were looking, for example, for age, for sex, for exposed to Ebola case in a family, working in an ETU, working in several health facilities. At the end, we could see from all the factors we already analyzed, there are 2 who are significantly related to seropositivity. This is that a health facility person was exposed to an Ebola case in the family, or the person working in a health facility was exposed to a patient who had signs or symptoms of Ebola when presenting him or herself at the health center. If you adjust for age and sex and all risk factors, work exposure remains still significantly associated to IgG positive, to seropositivity. To our knowledge, this is the first seroprevalence study among health personnel in Liberia. We can say that the results show that there is a non-negligible proportion of asymptomatic infections, so we have subclinical cases during an Ebola outbreak. There are significant factors related to seropositivity, but the results give an overview of the seroprevalence, but not yet on the protection level. The limitation of the study are that the results are coming from one ELISA assay, but NIH validated this assay against one ELISA and one Western blot for quality control. We do not have an exhaustive sample because the exact number of staff was not known by the head of the health facilities, and we had 29% of the health staff, which we would like to have included in the study, refused to participate. This was mainly that the Minister of Health was not paying a health hazard benefit payment, and we, being collaboration partner of the MOH, we were a bit punished for this. And then there are always people there are too scared that their blood is taken. To conclude, this study increases our knowledge on the disease dynamics, and it shows that the full extent of the Ebola epidemic is probably underestimated. Therefore, we are really looking forward to the population part of the study, where we included 2,245 people living in the 7 zones, and looking forward what we can draw as conclusions with this second part of the study. The first blood samples done with maybe half of this population already indicates that we have almost an equal high seroprevalence in the population than in our health workers. To conclude, I would like to thank the authorities in Liberia, MSF, the health workers especially for dedicating their time and their blood, the great study team, and I'm really, really happy that I can present you our field coordinator who was for the last year running the trial in Liberia, Cyrus, who is sitting there. Thank you.
Many thanks, Sibyl.